May I see your license, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No problem. Hang on just 1 second. Will this work for you? I can't seem to find my license, but...
You have a good day, sir.
Young people, freedom is not free. Someone always has to pay the price. The price is high, but Americans have always been willing to pay it when necessary. My advice to you is to keep yourself prepared, because it may be your turn the next time freedom is threatened.
You gonna tow his car?
That's not your business.
I'm asking you a question. If I'm asking you, it's my business. So instead of giving me other answers, just answer what I'm asking you. You understand me? Does it make you feel good stealing people's
Stealing?
You're towing his car.
I'm not stealing it.
Is it your car? It's not your car, so it's his car.
Yeah.
All right, is he gonna leave here with it today? No.
I'm not stealing it.
Does it make you feel good? No, you just f***ed up his day. I'm gonna do my best to f*** up your day. Okay? Hey, listen, next time I ask you something, you answer it. You don't give me your wise marks. You say yes sir, no sir, you answer my question. Do you understand me?
It's not your business what's going on.
It's my business because I asked. Listen. First of all, shut the f*** up when I'm speaking to you. Don't interrupt. I will let you know when you can speak. Secondly, when I ask you a question, you say yes sir, no sir, you give me the answer to the question I'm seeking. Do you understand that?
It's not your business.
Do you understand? Yes or no? I don't know how you can think that you're going to enforce law. You can't even answer yes or no questions. Do you understand what I'm saying? First of all, yes sir, no sir.
You're not in charge.
Do you understand? I'm a f***ing citizen, okay? You're doing a lot of f***ing nothing and being a fat piece of doing it. So right now I'm going to be in charge of you because you get paid by tax dollars, and I'm sure I pay way more in taxes a year than you do, okay? Keep your hand off your gun, man. It's not an armrest, okay?
I don't understand.
Is that an armrest or is that a firearm? Is that a duty arm or an armrest?
It's a firearm.
All right, so it's not a armrest. Keep your hands off it when I'm speaking to you. You're treating it like one. That's not what you use to rest things on. I'm not against cops, man. I donated to the Fraternal Order of Police. Just 2 weeks ago, I donated to them. The Fraternal Order of Police called me, and they said, would you like to make a donation? I said, sure. I'd like to donate 1,000 condoms so they can go f*** themselves that many times. Termination findings for Sargeant Darrell Gilmore of the Dunstable Police Department in Dunstable, Massachusetts. The town contends Sargeant Gilmore's termination was commensurate with his offense. Gilmore, by his conduct, violated 2 department rules. He violated 2 separate orders and was under the influence of alcohol on duty and smelled of alcohol on duty. The town points out that carrying a firearm under the influence is a crime. See MGL Chapter 269, subsection 10H. Reporting for work under the influence also raises the specter of an unprofessional officer and department and places lives at risk. In fact, Sargeant Gilmore was lucky he did not get into a car accident, which could have resulted in loss of lives. Furthermore, insubordination, particularly in the context of handling a critical incident such as the one on February 23rd, undercuts the paramilitary structure of a well-functioning police department by demonstrating an incomprehensible and unacceptable placement of one's own intentions over the best interest of the department and the community it serves. In addition, Sargeant Gilmore was brought up on termination charges once before, which resulted in a last chance agreement. Although the nature of the offense was different, an abuse of authority with respect to Gilmore's access to criminal justice history information by repeatedly using it for personal purposes. It demonstrates that Grievance exhibits extremely poor judgment. In this case, Grievance's only excuse for his poor judgment was that he was drunk, which of course is no excuse at all. I'm sure some of you remember Sargeant Darrell Gilmore of the Dunstable Police Department in Dunstable, Massachusetts. And this video is more than just an update. It's the result of a 9-month deep dive that I took into this guy's past. And what I found will absolutely shock you.
But what will be even more shocking is the fact that this guy still has a badge. Even after every other police officer in this department turned against him, filed complaints on him, and threw him under the bus for the abhorrent things he did in the name of policing. And part of the reason I did such a deep dive on this has to do with Dr. Phil. As a lot of you know, I was invited onto his show on an episode that featured activism, or at least that's what they told me. And they used Sargeant Gilmore's video to show the crowd and the nation just how mean I am to police. And the crowd was on board until I started talking about some of the things Sargeant Gilmore had done. Then the crowd started turning on Dr. Phil, one of the many reasons he decided to never even air that episode. And it got me thinking, how many people don't know what this guy's up to? And how could someone like this still have a badge?
Sargeant Darrell Gilmore has racked up quite the internal affairs jacket. 8 sustained complaints, 7 of which all happened on one day, with 9 months of total suspension time. 4/2/2017, truthfulness or professional integrity, conduct unbecoming of an officer, suspension 30 days. 4/2/2017, other misconduct, failure to comply with Corey laws, suspension 30 days. 4/2/2017, other misconduct, failure to comply with CJIS user agreement, suspension 30 days. 4/2/2017, other misconduct, improper access and dissemination of RMV records, suspension 30 days. 4/2/2017, other misconduct, federal violation of access of records, suspension 30 days. 4/2/2017, other misconduct, improper use of access to CJIS data, suspension 30 days. 4/2/2017, truthfulness or professional integrity, unlawful request for information, suspension 30 days. Now all this had happened in April, but 3 months had gone by, and Sargeant Gilmore must have been bored, not committing any crimes, protocol violations, policies, or any other federal violations, so he decided to get his feet wet and do something else. On 7/3/2017, he was sustained to have committed other misconduct, failure to follow orders, and sustained a written reprimand.
Now, for those of you wondering what the CJIS is,
it's the FBI's and Department of Justice's Criminal Justice Information System.
all of this wound up being enough to get Darrell Gilmore fired, but not before he wormed his way back into the department. Now, the community at large, or at small, has no idea what he did. And in fact, if you look up his name, you'll find nothing. It took me the better part of almost a year to get the information that I have now. I also called the Dunstable Police Department to get comment on his actions. And who wound up answering the phone? Sargeant Darrell Gilmore himself. I was wondering if you had any comment about you being fired after showing up drunk to work and then, going through arbitration with the town.
No, I have no comment on that.
No comment. So did you show up drunk or not? Do you know? Do you remember?
No, there was an arbitration, and I was found that it was a false accusation.
It actually wasn't found to be a false allegation. Every active duty police officer, including the police chief at the Dunstable Police Station in Dunstable, Massachusetts, witnessed him being drunk and filed complaints against him. Amid all of his other illegal and bad behavior separately, this turned out to just be too much. But that's just one of the lies he told me in our over 6-minute phone call. Now, I was very explicit at the beginning of the call that I was recording for my records. He opted to continue the conversation. For someone with no comment, he talked an awful lot. So now we're going to jump into the legal proceedings, and after, you can watch the entire phone interview that I had with Sargeant Gilmore. And it won't be hard to pick apart all the lies. And one thing's for certain, you'll be left wondering just how this moron has a badge and a gun in the first place after all of this. Well, it's pretty easy to say. The public never knew about it until right now. The night of the incident that most of this case revolves around, involves responding to the scene of a personal tragedy of a police officer. What happened that night was tragic and has nothing to do with the story. In fact, our thoughts and prayers go out to that officer. I did plenty of digging into him, and Officer Tully turns out to be a pretty solid cop. As do a lot of the other police officers at the Drake Police Department. I mean, seriously, big ups to them for even reporting it. So the exact nature to that emergency response call will be kept anonymous. But I'll give you all the other illegal, unlawful, and drunken details. Let's jump in. Dunstable Police Department rules and regulations. Possession or use of alcohol. Dunstable police officers shall not possess and or use any alcohol on duty other than in an authorized duty capacity. Dunstable police officers shall not report for duty or be on duty while under the influence of intoxicating liquor or with an odor of an alcoholic beverage on their breath. Dunstable police officers shall not be insubordinate. Insubordination shall include any failure or deliberate refusal to obey a lawful order, written or oral, given by a superior officer. Keep in mind, Grievant represents Sargeant Darrell Gilmore. Grievant was hired by the town as a police officer in 1998. Around the summer of 2001, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant and held that position at the time of his termination, effective April 4, 2018. At the time of the incident leading to Grievant's termination, he was working the day shift on Saturday and Sunday, the evening shift on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and was off on Thursday and Friday. At the time of his termination in 2018, Grievant was the union president. During the relevant time period, the police department had 8 full-time employees. Chief James Dow, Sergeants Darrell Gilmore, Eric Hoare, and Nicholas Papagiorgio, and 4 patrolman positions, which included Matt Tully, Timothy Elegio, and Charles Chiprales. The department also had between 5 and 6 reserve officer positions. Here are the instances of discipline in Grievance file. The first date, dated August 16, 2006, was a letter to Grievant from then Chief James Dowes, concerning authorized use of the department's emergency telephone line. Grievant was offered the choice of a 2-day appealable suspension or an 8-hour tour of foot duty on the rail trail on a specific date. According to the letter, Grievant accepted the foot duty and expressed remorse. The letter also noted that the then chief accepted Grievant's apology. The other instance of discipline was a 30-day suspension. Now we jump forward to where almost all police officers respond to the home of a relative of a Dunstable police officer. Eventually, Sergeant Darrell Gilmore also shows up. Way worse for wear. And Sergeant Gilmore didn't show up to this home as a regular citizen offering support. He showed up in full uniform, armed. Chief wanted to know how things were going at the scene. Papagiorgio told the police chief that Chiprales made a complaint about Grievant being under the influence of alcohol. Papagiorgio also told the chief he sent Grievant home because he observed signs of somebody who was impaired, and he smelled alcohol. The chief then called Grievant at home to check on him. By this time, it was midnight, or 12:15 a.m. According to the chief, during their conversation, Grievant acknowledged that Papagiorgio had told him Chiprales had made a complaint. Grievant said he had a couple of drinks earlier and had gone to bed early. The chief did not ask Grievant what he drank or how many drinks he had. The rest of the conversation consisted of Grievant asking the chief if he could call his therapist for Tully, and the chief said he would. The chief next saw Grievant about 8 a.m. or 8:15 a.m. the next morning, Saturday, when Grievant reported for his shift. Now remember when Sergeant Gilmore told me in our phone call that he never had anything to drink? Well, here he is admitting to it on a deposition. They did not talk about the complaint against Grievant until the following Monday night when Grievant reported to work. In the interim, the chief spoke to the officers who were present over the weekend, called a fellow chief on Sunday night, and then spoke to Town Administrator Hutton on Monday, February 25, 2018, to start the process of putting Grievant on paid administrative leave, pending an internal affairs investigation.
With respect to the officers who accused Grievant of being under the influence of alcohol, the first one to allegedly observe this behavior was Allegio, who graduated from the police academy in 2017 and has been employed as a full-time patrolman by the town since July 17, 2017. Although he was scheduled to work midnight to 8 a.m. on February 23rd to 24th, 2018, he was called in by Papa Giorgio a little after 10 p.m. on February 23rd because of the incident. Allegio arrived at the station before 11 p.m. He saw the chief and Grievant talking outside with Telly close by. Allegio went downstairs to the locker room to get dressed, and Grievant came in shortly after to get dressed. According to Allegio, as soon as Grievant entered the locker room, the room smelt like the odor of an alcoholic beverage. Allegio testified he did not have a flashlight, so he asked Grievant if he had one. Grievant said several times that he had gone to bed early and the chief had woken him up when he called. Grievant then told Allegio he had a flashlight in his car and said he needed to find his car keys. According to Allegio, it took Grievant about 10 seconds to locate them on the bench. He gave the keys to Allegio, who went to the Grievant's car to retrieve the flashlight, which was where Grievant told him it was located. Allegio testified that when he got the flashlight, Grievant's car smelled of a heavy odor of alcoholic beverages. On cross-examination, Allegio testified that he did not see any open alcoholic beverage containers or any beverage containers of any kind in Grievant's car. After Allegio returned Grievant's keys, they both proceeded upstairs. According to Allegio, Grievant was a little slow, seemed a bit unsteady on his feet, and was holding on to the rail with both hands. He also said Grievant's speech was slurred and delayed.
Now, doing this type of investigative journalism is exhausting, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. We have to submit records requests. Once submitted, we only get a portion of the information that we're looking for, so then we have to exhaust another 10 days to get more information that we wanted on our first request. Then as things start becoming more evident, we take the allegations and findings on his internal affairs jacket in his post-commission and run other records requests for similar dates. And that eventually leads us to these arbitration documents. Now, in his phone call, Sargeant Gilmore will tell anyone who'll listen that he was found innocent. We're only a quarter of the way into this thing. We've already found the second police officer that witnessed him show up to work to protect and serve the citizens of Dunstable, hammered drunk, to the point where he needed to use both hands to hold onto the railing while going up the stairs. But if you search his name on the internet, you'll find nothing. It's like it never existed. Or is that the whole point?
As Chaprales came up the stairs from the locker room, he saw Grievant come in with his uniform shirt on a hanger. The two men had a quick conversation of about 3 to 5 minutes. They were about 10 feet apart during the conversation, and Grievant was above him on the stairs. Chaprales observed Grievant had slurred speech. His eyes were half shut, and Chaprales could smell an odor of alcohol coming from the area where the Grievant was standing. When Chaprales arrived at the incident scene, he advised Papa Giorgio of his interaction with Grievant and what he had observed. About 10 to 15 minutes later, while standing on the porch of the incident house with Papa Giorgio and Fire Chief Rich, Chaprales saw Grievant drive up in his personal vehicle, exit his vehicle, and walk towards the house. So now Sargeant Gilmore has left his home, showed up to the police station, went to the accident scene, returned to the police station, and came back to the accident scene all hammered drunk. Now keep in mind, folks, that several police officers and a fire chief are watching this guy drive into an accident scene. Meaning every police officer that had had contact with him up to this point knew that he was drunk and now have witnessed him operate a motor vehicle. The part I find interesting is that he's never been charged with OUI or DUI. Sometime after 11 p.m., Chaprales arrived on scene, and 15 to 20 minutes later, Grievant drove in, but apparently Papa Giorgio did not observe how he was driving. Before Grievant had arrived, Chaprales told Papa Giorgio that the Grievant was very intoxicated in the station. He had observed him to be unsteady on his feet and slurring his speech, and something had to be done. Papa Giorgio advised that they would deal with it later. Grievant walked toward Papa Giorgio, who was standing on the top steps of the porch. Chapralis and Rich were at the bottom of the steps. Grievant stood with those two men and asked how they were all doing.
So now we have the police chief, Officer Iolegio, and Officer Chapralis. All witnessed Sergeant Gilmore being drunk and driving and being in official capacity while being in uniform and holding a weapon. Now we're going to hear what Sergeant Papa Giorgio has to say. Could it be 4 out of 4?
According to Papa Giorgio, Grievant was about 6 to 8 feet away, and they had a conversation for no more than 5 minutes. As Grievant was talking, Papa Giorgio could smell an alcoholic odor coming from the area where the 3 men were standing. He also stated he had not smelled it before Grievant arrived. Grievant was calm, but he was shuffling back and forth while standing, and his speech was slurred. Papa Giorgio walked away with Grievant to the middle of the yard, told him he could smell alcohol coming from him, to which Grievant responded, "You do?" Now the next part is where good cops that reported a crime might turn into bad cops, because the next logical question would be, have you been drinking? But these cops know they need to report whatever they're told. And if the answer to the question they asked Gilmore could make the police look bad, then maybe it's not worth asking that question. He did not ask if Grievant had been drinking. Papa Giorgio then asked Grievant to leave, which he did. The chief called to check in about an hour later and asked if Grievant had come by. Papa Giorgio told the chief what had happened and that he had sent the Grievant home. Papa Giorgio stated that he thought Grievant was very intoxicated, and he did not take action to arrest him or make sure he didn't drive because he was too concentrated on the scene of the incident.
Now this is such a weird situation. It's not really a cover-up because they all complained about him and they all made this knowledge public to town administration and the chief. But I'm finding it difficult to wade through all this murky water. You have a sergeant of the Dunstable Police Station in Dunstable, Massachusetts, observing another one of his sergeants, in uniform, with badge, and armed, acting totally irresponsibly, being drunk on duty, and operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated. I mean, I think it's pretty serious when you have a drunk armed guy just driving around showing up at police stops. The first thing you do is issue a field sobriety test, but it's like I mentioned before. Sometimes you don't ask questions when you don't want the answers. And giving a sobriety test might yield more answers than they were actually looking to find. So they ignored the drunken cop so they could focus on their crime scene. Now I wasn't there. The only people that know what happened were the people that were there that night. And I've met Sergeant Papa Giorgio. He's actually a pretty decent guy. I guess I'll have to let you, the subscribers at home, make the final determination.
Apparently, on February 23, 2018, the chief told Grievant he was putting him on paid administrative leave pending an internal affairs investigation. On March 12, 2018, Grievant was informed by a letter from the chief that, as part of his professional standards review, based on an internal complaint, he was to submit a detailed written report to the chief at the request of the independent investigator retained by the town, describing his involvements in the events. The town also argues that, based on the accounts of Officers Iolegio and Chapralis, and Sergeants Papa Giorgio and Hoare, as well as the testimony from Mr. Zeisel, the only logical conclusion is that Grievant was under the influence of alcohol. Grievant's claim that he was not drunk, but rather simply groggy because of a medicine he had been taking for years, is nothing short of an alcohol-induced fantasy. The town asserts reporting with the odor of alcohol in one's breath is an undeniable violation of Rule 13.03. The evidence in this case, however, demonstrates with equal and stunning clarity that the Grievant was intoxicated in violation of the same rule, although Grievant attempted to deflect responsibility for his own misconduct by claiming Chapralis made the initial complaint in retaliation for previous actions Grievant took.
Now Sergeant Gilmore is saying this is all made up. In fact, Chapralis made this whole thing up because Sergeant Gilmore punished him. And this was all retaliation because he didn't like how his supervisor treated him. That's total BS, but let's let that play out for a second. Say Chapralis made the whole thing up because he didn't like how Gilmore punished him. How do we explain the actions reported by Iolegio, Sergeant Papa Giorgio, Sergeant Hoare, or the chief of police, or the fire chief? Did they all have an axe to grind with Sargeant Gilmore? Obviously not.
Finally, the town contends Grievance termination was commensurate with his offense. Grievant, by his conduct, violated 2 department rules. He violated 2 separate orders and was under the influence of alcohol on duty and smelled of alcohol on duty. The town points to that carrying a firearm under the influence is a crime. See MGL Chapter 269, subsection 10H. Reporting for work under the influence also raises the specter of an unprofessional officer and department and places lives at risk. In fact, Grievant was lucky he did not get into a car accident, which could have resulted in loss of lives. Furthermore, insubordination, particularly in the context of handling a critical incident such as the one on February 23, 2018, undercuts the paramilitary structure of a well-functioning police department by demonstrating an incomprehensible and unacceptable placement of one's own intentions over the best interest of the department and the community it serves. In addition, Grievant was brought up on termination charges once before, which resulted in a last chance agreement. Although the nature of that offense was different, an abuse of authority with respect to Grievance's access to criminal justice history information by repeatedly using it for personal purposes. It demonstrates that Grievant exhibits extremely poor judgment. In this case, Grievant's only excuse for his poor judgment was that he was drunk, which of course is no excuse at all. The Dunstable Police Department simply cannot be compelled to retain an officer whose judgment is suspect to such lapses. It should also be noted that Grievant was not a rookie, but rather a police officer with 20 years' experience. It is well established that just cause discipline systems are intended to rehabilitate employees rather than to simply punish them. In this case, however, Grievant has showed twice in 10 months that he presents a significant risk to the integrity and reputation of the police department, and that he does not have the professional judgment to be entrusted with the authority and responsibility of a police officer. Termination under these circumstances is appropriate.
Now, I called the Dunstable Police Department as a member of the public to ask some questions because no member of the public has any idea that any of this had happened. And as happenstance would have had it, who answered the phone? It was Sargeant Gilmore himself. Now, I'm surprised the moment I told him I was recording the call that he decided to continue the call in the first place and not hang up the phone. Because he didn't do himself any favors. In fact, the only thing he did on my call was in fact the same thing he did during all of the arbitration minutes that you just saw. He lied.
Dunstable Police.
Hi, who am I speaking to?
Sergeant Gilmore.
Sergeant Gilmore. Excellent. Just so you know, I am recording this call for my records. I was actually calling to speak to a supervisor, but you might do. I was looking to find out, I'm not sure if you know, that I'm sure you actually, that you would know. I was just wondering if there is any comment on you being fired after showing up drunk to work.
What's this?
I was wondering if I was looking for a supervisor, but you're the one that I was transferred to. I was wondering if you had any comment about you being fired after showing up drunk to work and then, going through arbitration with the town.
No, I have no comment on that.
No comment. So did you show up drunk or not? Do you know? Do you remember?
No, there was an arbitration and I was found that it was a false accusation.
So
That's all I have to say.
Okay, fair enough. So were all the other officers, including the chief and Papa Giorgio, lying when they made those representations?
You'd have to read the arbitration.
I read all 45 pages of it, and they all seem pretty clear. I think the only question is they never asked you how much you had to drink, just that you admitted that you had a drink, and then they never followed up by asking you how many drinks you had, but they noted a strong odor of alcohol from your vehicle and from your person when you went into the locker room. So everyone kind of compared notes and figured out that they could smell it and that you admitted to it, just no one kind of was able to figure out how much you had. What about the 30-day suspension and the illegal access to NJIS? What was that all about?
To NGIS?
NJIS, the Information Database System. Basically NCIC.
I want to say it was several years ago, but I have no comment on that either.
Yes, sir. It was several years ago. So what was your suspension? 30 days for that?
Is that what you read?
That's what I read on just one count, but you were charged with 7 different counts in one day.
I have no comment on that.
Okay. And what originally led you to being placed on an 8-hour foot patrol several years ago as a comment, along with an apology to the chief?
I have no comment. That was 20-something years ago.
It wasn't that long ago, sir. It wasn't that long ago. It was about 16 years ago. I guess close enough to 20. I guess you could split the difference. So, looking at your post-commission report, there's 9 different sustained complaints. Were you innocent of all of those allegations?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you have in front of you. But I have no comment.
I mean, I can go over it with you if you like. I mean, I have every single...
Fine.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
I just want to make sure I don't get it wrong. Grievant was hired by the town as police officer in 1998. Around 2001, you're promoted to sergeant. That's correct, right?
Around that time.
Perfect. And thank you for your years of hard work for the community. You were the union president. That's a big deal. I'm sure that's a selective job that doesn't come easy. It does say here that you had a 2-day appealable suspension or an 8-hour tour of duty on the foot trail until a specific date. According to the letter, you accepted the foot duty and expressed remorse. So, I mean, if it's something that you had expressed remorse about, I don't think it's a big deal to mention it. The other day was a 30-day suspension, memorialized in a last chance agreement. When you accessed the CGIS, the Criminal Justice Information System. What were you looking up on the Criminal Justice Information System?
I have no comment on that.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you having a chat with me. Like I said when we started this conversation. My name's Good Citizen. Like I said when we started this conversation, I did notify you that I am recording this call for my records. So I appreciate you being willing to chat with me on recording here.
All right, well, have a good day.
All right, you take care. Any last comments you might want to make? Oh. Guess he didn't want to chat anymore.
Take a good long look at this face. This is Sargeant Darrell Gilmore of the Dunstable Police Department in Dunstable, Massachusetts. A man who is so vile and whose actions is so vile that his entire police department turned against him. His own town fired him. But because of a loophole, he was able to keep his job and patrol the streets. But if you see those blue lights activate behind you and you see Sargeant Gilmore get out to approach your vehicle, request a supervisor. Well, he is a supervisor, but request a different supervisor, because he could be drunk. And statistically and historically speaking, showing up to work drunk in uniform, cruising around while carrying a gun, is something he has no fear doing. In fact, he's so brazen about it, he does it around other cops. But his belief in blue line silence is so strong, he thought he was never gonna get caught. And the only thing more dangerous than a regular cop is a drunk one. Dunstable, Massachusetts, how do you feel about this guy protecting and serving the right out of you? Until next time, that's the reason I stopped you today.